Going on, y'all? I'm here to talk about the changes I've made to Urshifu in my ROM hack. So if you're new here and you're looking at this video, you're probably freaking out internally thinking, oh my god, this guy gave Urshifu sniper, right? I mean, it's called ruthless in this ROM hack, but as you can see, it says sniper. So I know a lot of you newer viewers are probably panicking internally and are just absolutely like, I mean, it sounds crazy on paper, of course. Um, so I recommend if you're new here, you pause the video and read the description. It'll give you a lot of background info on the ROM hack and the way it's balanced, and that'll kind of answer or address some of the things you might be thinking if you're looking at this. I'll be honest, it was kind of difficult to balance out three interesting and mutually exclusive useful ability slots for Urshifu. Um, on top of balancing it around the other fighting in water and fighting in dark types, it was genuinely pretty difficult. Um, I tried to prioritize other like fighting and water types getting cooler abilities just because I'm not, I don't know. I mean, these are obviously good. Obviously, it's just they're not very interesting. I'll explain them more in a bit, but I do want to just quickly address off the start that Ruthless, although it is, yes, it's crazy on paper. Number one, this is a ROM hack, right? So your Pokemon is going to be progressing as the game goes on. So they don't actually get access to Wicked Blow and Surging Strikes until level 60, which if you look at the level cap and boss fight guide, which is on the Google Sheet, link down below in the description. Speaking of, after you're done with this video, check that out if you haven't already. I've got a really important move guide because all of the moves in this game are completely reworked entirely. So I have them all organized into super nice categories for you to understand better. And yeah, it's super useful and very important, obviously, because moves are the foundation of how the game plays. And yeah, this little level cap guy is going to give you an idea of what level the moves are legal for. So you only have access to your Wicked Blow Surging Strike stuff for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 boss fights out of the like 50 in the game, or 45, 50 in the game. So very, only like about the last final, end game portion of the game. Uh, and obviously it will be very strong for those, but it's also not like this is uniquely powerful. There are tons and tons of mons that have, 120, 130 attack on top of boosting abilities, on top of high base power moves that are also boosted by those abilities. And a lot of them are also more spammable than Urshifu is. Not to mention there's the concept of overkill and whatnot. That's a huge thing, especially in an in-game context where the AI isn't switching around. In a competitive setting, you send out your fucking single strike, you click the ruthless wicked blow, and even a resist is taking like half their fucking health bar. That's ridiculous. But that's not what this is balanced around. You're clicking whatever's in front of you at any given moment. You're never predicting a hard switch on the AI. So yeah, it can be nice to like OHKO neutral threats or something, but it's not like that is the most. It's obviously useful. I just don't want people to like freak out because number one, you have tons of coverage with Move Relearner anyways, so you can also just hit them super effectively. So having that strong neutral hit isn't as. And I mean, obviously it's good. I don't want to downplay how good it is, but I also don't want to like oversell like, oh my god, it's so good, because again, there is that concept of overkill. And not to mention, Ruthless is only really useful until the end game. There are so here's the laydown of the crit moves. As you can see, they're all bolded or at least underlined on the screen. So as you see, some of them are actually underlined and not bolded. So you have Aqua Cutter, Night Slash, and Cross Chop for stab, for example, but those are only guaranteed to crit with a scope lens. So the way that the game is intended to be played, you're supposed to be playing consistently. You're, Teamlocked, nuzlocked. Again, if you don't know what that is, I really do recommend you just pause it and read the description. I have it all laid out in bullet point form, so you can read that to understand what that is more. But essentially, you're supposed to be playing safely. So having, a 50% crit move is not consistent. You need to run Scope Lens, which means you don't get to run a speed boosting item or whatever. So it can be useful, like Ruthless, Aqua Cutter, Cross Chop, Night Slash, Shadow Claw, Laceration, stuff like that can be useful for the mid game if you're trying to OHKO like a slower threat. But the thing is, 97 base speed in competitive is already like not that good of a speed tier, but in an in-game context, when you're not geared, 20% of the time you're going to get a plus speed nature. The other 80% of the time you're not going to get a plus speed nature. And then your eggs, all the eggs in the game are only getting 20 speed IVs. So your Urshifu is only hitting 282, which obviously this is level 100 scaling, but just for a reference, you're not even outspeeding like base. Are you even outspeeding base 70? Okay, I horribly exaggerated. Oh no, wait. Oh, I put 17. Okay. Okay, you are outspeeding base 660, 75. Okay, 80. Okay, you're outspeeding like 77 or whatever the fuck. Point is, you're not very fast at all unless you get a lucky plus speed nature Urshifu, and even then you're still not outspeeding like base 90 plus, you know, so it's not that impressive. You're going to be needing to run Choice Scarf or Quick Claw a lot of the time. Quick Claw is reworked, as you can see on screen. It's a single-use consumable item. You can also use like Endure Custat Berry if you're using your Quick Claw on somebody else. So all three of those can allow your Urshifu to, you know, move first, but otherwise you're going to have to run a lot of bulkier sets, which is good. I mean, they are a lot, they are pretty damn tanky. 105, 105, 75 is very solid bulk. So this thing can be used offensively in a speedy manner or in a tankier way to take hits and then heal damage back, or just take the hit with like AV or a super effective berry or whatever it is. So that's all really good, and makes him, I mean, to be honest, he's still going to be a bit of a scarf hog, sadly. Just mods like this kind of inherently are going to be. Not that he can't be used. I mean, he has good utility moves. You know, he's got heal move, slack off, single strike form as parting shot. You've got battle cry, which drops attack and special attack by -2. You've got all, you know, counter, comeuppance, all types of like little utility options you can take advantage of. It's just not what you would be using him for most of the time. But on Teamlocked, you know, there are certain situations where you would run around like a more defensive set, or at least a tankier set. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, the crit moves are all endgame. So on top of that exclusive Wicked Blow Surging Strikes, I've also given them access to Brutal Bash and Triple Kick. Brutal Bash is cool for the single strike because he's all about hitting super hard in one hit, you know? It's kind of like Mr. One Punch. So I think giving him Brutal Bash, which is the exact same thing as Wicked Blow, by the way, it's just fighting type. And then giving Rapid Strike Triple Kick, which is another guaranteed crit move that is significantly weaker than Brutal Bash, but it has the huge added benefit, two huge pros, I would say, over Brutal Bash. Number one, it can be used multiple times in a row, which means you can run Choice Scarf Triple Kick, and you can spam it. You can get 2 kills in a row with Triple Kick with Choice Scarf. With Surging Strikes, Wicked Blow, and Brutal Bash, as you can see, they can't be used twice in a row. That's a balancing measure for all the Pokemon that get these types of moves, of which there are many new variants of them. There is also Stone Edge and Temper Flare, as you can see on screen, which are rock and fire type versions of, you know, Wicked Blow and Brutal Bash. So those are also 180 base power with Ruthless, which is the main use for Ruthless in the mid game, I would say, because you don't have any stab Ruthless options outside of the 50% crit ones, which, like I said, are a bit more niche for player use. They're not, I mean, for AI, they're definitely really, really scary because for the AI, like, you should be treating it as if it's always critting, but for the player, you need to be running that scope lens for the consistent crit, right? There is also another little benefit. Single Strike has that stab lash out, which is Ruthless boosted, 112.5 base power with Ruthless, which is really nice because you can use that with a Choice Scarf, and that's also a mid-game option. You get that as soon as you evolve. You'll have it before you evolve even as Kubfu, so when you hit level 35, you'll have lash out, and you can go crazy with that, which is nice for a stronger dark option. Better than Night Slash in most cases because, again, you can run any held item with Lash Out. Meanwhile, Night Slash necessitates that scope lens for the consistent damage. There are a bunch of other things I would love to cover, but first I'm going to talk about their other abilities, which I haven't really touched on yet because they are really cool and interesting. So because of the fact that Ruthless's boost is only relevant for the very end of the game for the most part, of course, I'm not trying to doubt, like, yes, First Impression is also good. That's a 135 power crit move. Or it's 60 power, but it always crits, so it's 135 with Ruthless. That's really nice, especially if you pulled like Terra Bug, that'd be fucking sick. But even without Terra Bug, it's just a very strong move. Nice strong priority option, and with Move Relayer, you can always tack it on whenever you need it. But what I'm trying to get at here is that your other two abilities in Defiant and Justified are still very useful because of the fact that Ruthless isn't as crazy until the end of the game. So Justified is really, really good on this guy because it just gives you a free attack boost, right? You can bait a dark move on the AI very easily. Hard switch into your Urshifu, which either 2 times or 4 times resists dark, and then you get a +1 boost. And you're going crazy from there. That's the same boost that Ruthless gives you, right? It's a 50% attack boost. However, Justified works with literally any move in the game, of course, of which you have many, many stab options before you get to level 60 or 57. Let's call it level 57. So you'll definitely be taking advantage of Justified a lot. I would say that would be the ability you use most of the time. If your abilities are even coming into play. This is one of those mons where, until the end game at least, the ability might be useless for a lot of boss fights just because of the nature of the slots that I chose for it. Also, some weird stuff I should probably get out of the way. Blaze Kick and Temper Flare, I opted to give to both of them because Rapid Strike gets access to Fire Punch in Vanilla. And so I was like, alright, screw it, whatever. He can just have, you know, the fire moves because in Vanilla he gets Fire Punch, so Blaze Kick Temper Flare, those are both fine. Temper Flare is a bit of a reach because they don't really strike me as super angry Pokemon, but it's more of a. I just wanted to encourage Ruthless a bit more, you know, because it is pretty meh until the. I mean, it's not bad. It's just more niche, you know. Of course, you still even like Focus Punch, you could definitely take advantage of. That Lash Out is super strong, like I covered already. Focus Punch is really cool. It is difficult to pull off in an in-game context because the AI isn't switching out, and getting off a sub on a switch is also impossible because they're not hard switching. So getting off keeping your sub intact can be difficult, but you could definitely run like a Quick Claw substitute on a taunt lead maybe, and then they taunt you, and then you Focus Punch and blow them up. And Focus Punch also gives you a +1 attack boost and accuracy boost now, which is really cool. On top of being a crit move, so it's 150 power with the crit. It's 100 power, right? So with Ruthless, it's 225. So it's a very strong move if you can pull it off, but it is definitely a bit of a skill curve to using it. But yeah, sub on a lead or something, or like even like passing a sub. I don't know. This is a bunch of little ways you can play around with it. You've also got Superpower, Hydro Assault, which are both just really strong, 140 power, physical Draco Meteor variants. You've got your good old CC, you've got your Wave Crash, you've got your Brutal Swing, which is the same thing as Wave Crash with Dark type. So yeah, you've got good options there for either form. And I will say that Rapid Strike Triple Kick does go really crazy late game because it's 135 power Triple Kick with Ruthless, right? So you can just switch it in, and it also breaks Focus Sashes, same with Surging Strike. So despite being weaker by a lot than Brutal Bash or Wicked Blow, it has the benefit of being spammable. At least Triple Kick is spammable, and it breaks through Focus Sash and Sturdy and Multi-Scale and Energy Shield and all this other stuff that the AI will have to stop you. So I would say I would prefer using Rapid Strike, but they're both obviously very good. Excuse me. It's up to your personal preferences, the point in the game in which you're at, the other teammates you have on your team. You know, like if you have another Water type or another Dark type already, then maybe you would prefer the other form. Personally, I would rather not use these guys at all. I think they're super boring, but hey man, you know, some people like Urshifu. I think it's super fucking lame. I didn't even cover Unseen Fist being gone yet. I know some VGC head is going to be like, why'd you get rid of I mean, actually, they might be happy, but this hack is not doubles focused at all. There is only one guaranteed double battle in the game. I'm not even sure if I can add more. If I can, it'll be like 3 tops in the main story. Very few, you know, double battles, so it's functionally a useless ability. Hence why it doesn't have it anymore. So Justified is good, very good, consistent, easy to use. Ruthless is obviously strong, but more limiting in the moves you can use with it. And then Defiant is very good early game, but as the game progresses and the AI uses less stat dropping moves, or at least guaranteed stat dropping moves, because for example, lots of moves have a chance to drop stats. And for the player, you should be planning as if those are always dropping in bad cases or never dropping in good cases. Meaning, if you're using Defiant, you should plan as if they never get the drop. And if you're trying to switch in and take the hit better, then you should plan as if they always get the drop. Basically, you should be planning for the worst case, right? That's how it works with prep. And what that means is Defiant is only useful versus guaranteed stat dropping moves, which is much more common on the AI in the early game. The player can abuse those moves for the whole game, you know, because you have the knowledge of a real human being who can like debuff appropriately, and also the main reason debuffing is so good in the first place is because the AI never switches out. They very rarely hard switch out, so using debuffing attacks like Battle Cry or Chilling Water or whatever, Dismal Cry, etc. is really good for you, but it's bad for the AI towards the mid and end game. So Defiant is very niche. Once in a while, there will be some guaranteed like defense dropping move maybe on the AI that you can switch in, and the payoff is definitely huge because you get +2 instead of only +1. And Parting Shot is more common now. It's not as ubiquitous as in Sweltering. And Sweltering Sun Defiant is great because pretty much every lead and a lot of the AI Pokemon have access to Parting Shot to switch out more reliably when they have a bad matchup, or just to disrupt your plan and, you know, kind of change up the way the battle plays. But that's not a factor anymore in Scrambled because I wanted to limit the Parting Shot distribution for flavor more, which means it's just a less common move now. And therefore the AI will have it less, and therefore Defiant triggering on Parting Shot, which was the easiest and probably the really only way to get it to trigger late game, is gone for the most part. Obviously, like the Team Star bosses, a lot of them will have Parting Shot because of the nature of their Pokemon. You know, they're like this evil team delinquent type users, so they can have Parting Shot more. So maybe you would use Defiant for those whenever the AI does have Parting Shot. Otherwise, it's a very niche ability. But yeah, occasionally when Parting Shot does show up, you can swap on Defiant, bait the Parting Shot with one of your other Pokemon, or even with Urshifu themselves, switch it in, get +3 attack, and then you go absolutely crazy with any attack at that point with a Scarf or whatever. So that's all fun. You also have, you know, your good old Priority and Mach Punch, Sucker Punch, Aqua Jet, Also Fake Out and Bullet Punch, which is obviously nice to teach once in a while. You got your little multi-hit options. Battle Boulder Bash, which is really strong on Kung Fu at level 25. Very early move. It's 90 power, and it always drops defense rock move. So that's pretty cool for Kung Fu early on. You can use that into combos with Mach Punch and Bullet Punch and other stuff. Speaking of Kung Fu, it's very straightforward. It's just a pretty quick, pretty strong, relatively tanky, pure fighting type with Defiant, which is very, very strong early game because of the fact that there's tons of stat dropping moves flying around on the AI early game. Like, Bulldoze, Rock Tomb, Grass Knot, Low Kick, Dismal Cry, all these moves are guaranteed to drop stats, and the AI will abuse those on you, and you can switch and get that boost. Mold Breaker is nice once in a while to bypass stuff like Sturdy and Multiscale, and then Justified, as I already covered, just a good option to get a free attack boost consistently. So Defiant and Justified are very similar in that regard, where you're basically switching in on specific circumstances to get an attack boost, which is either stronger or less limiting than Ruthless. And then Ruthless is a flat boost, but only works with specific moves. So that's kind of the way that I balance them out. And overall, that's pretty much all I have to say about them. There's a bunch of other move changes and buffs that I would love to cover, but I just don't have the time in all these videos. So if you haven't done so yet, after this, I recommend you go to the Google Sheet and check that out. I appreciate you making it to the end. Leave a comment if you did. It's cool for me to know who does make it to the end of these videos, and I do appreciate you all who do make it to the end. Peace, y'all.